Like, shocker, man sells tickets for shows that he's announced. That is not a fucking important announcement.
Just to cut in there, I don't want to be called hypocrite because like I do feel like Tony listened to us because what were we saying on Spotlight? Like they should have already announced, tickets for All In. They should have capitalized on the goodwill around the time of the show, which is pretty much evaporated now. This has been the majority conversation, as Gareth pointed out on Twitter, has been about the announcement rather than, like you said, the good stuff on the show. But I do want to like set our stall out first before we go into it, JP. Like I think people are throwing the baby out with the bathwater a little bit. I absolutely think you should use your television show that's seen by almost 1 million people to say the tickets for your second biggest show ever probably, or your yearly big show are going on sale. That isn't the issue. And I think people are conflating two things and treating it like it's the issue. It isn't. You should do that. That was a problem leading into All In. A lot of things that were obvious, put that on your fucking TV and build this up as the biggest show ever, didn't happen. Like, so I think we need to make that clear right away. At least for me, that is an important point for me. They should absolutely have done that. They should absolutely have had, probably shouldn't have been Tony Khan, probably shouldn't have been, maybe could have been Nigel McGuinness. In some way, they should have communicated that because I think it should be made a bigger deal than it realistically is. It's not that big a deal, a ticket on sale. Yeah, something. But like but that's the thing. Inherently, it's not really that big a deal, is it? And it's not like they're announcing All In 2 or All In Wembley 2 or whatever you want to word it. It's not like it's the first we're hearing about the show. And this is the thing, because whether you like it or not, Tony Khan has an announcement, and the graphic and all of it is a gimmick, and it's a gimmick that's worked, and it's a gimmick that they know what they're doing with it. And in the past, it has meant something. The original All In got announced like that. The ROH TV deal, not the ROH TV deal, that wouldn't be one. ROH in general, got announced when that felt like it was a big deal.
That's an announcement that's never happening, I don't think, in our lifetimes. But there you
go. That one's that. But you know what I mean? Like, it was effective, and it was a gimmick. And the gimmick is like, we all have to agree, the gimmick has completely worn out its welcome now, because like it's easy, because I know people will say, well, he's a promoter, so we should promote, right? But there's also a boy who cried wolf about it as well. Like, you can't, you lose credibility when you, I suppose, over promote, and by promising this big announcement, and and again, a time when people's goodwill towards AEW is at an all-time low, or at least it feels like that right now, to then just get on TV and be like, tickets are on sale in a month, and also get on this mail. It was announcements about a mailing list we're all on already, and it was like, it wasn't cute, it wasn't funny, it wasn't clever, and you can tell that by, again, whether you personally agree or not, just look at the strength of feeling and reaction of the vast majority of people to this, who are all like, fuck off, Tony Khan. This was one too many for so many people, because it was a fucking massive nothing burger. Like, as big as All In is, as much as you should make a deal about the TV, you didn't have to, again, like the Flair story, shoot yourself in the foot and like just give people an open goal to give you grief about, because of course people are going to be let down. Of course people expected something bigger than what this was, which was basically a mailing list. It's fucking, this is another thing sums up Tony Khan right now.
I honestly thought when he first started off and they started talking about All In, I thought, oh, is this like a UK/Europe tour? I thought, okay, that might be something that's worth announcing, but then that's not, I don't know how much of an interest it's going to be to your US TV audience as much as anything, but, it's something they need to do. No. And that's the problem. The problem is you can't build this up as an important, you can't build this up as an important announcement. It's stuff that they kind of should be doing anyway. And it's then saying, well, this is a big deal. We're doing the thing that we should have been doing anyway. Like, that's what I can't understand, like, for it as much as anything else. And so it was going to be disappointing. And then there's also a lot of boy who cried wolf on this stuff. We're getting lots and lots of important announcements that happen on a semi-regular basis that tend to happen when ratings are down. What I got reminded by is when WWE would have bad ratings and their solution would bring Vince back, bring back a McMahon. It was that type of stuff. Now we're getting Tony Khan as an important announcement. That's what we're getting in exchange for it. And I used to hate it when WWE did that. So I was like, you can't go back to that well all of the time. You actually need to deal with the underlying problems of why aren't people tuning into the TV? Why isn't the product hot? And it doesn't feel like they want to do that. That's not a conversation that they want to have. partly because I don't think people want to challenge Tony Khan on it, and partly because they're in a comfortable position themselves. So why would they challenge? They'll just go, yeah, I'll just go along with this. This is a paid job within wrestling. I don't need to, it's not their concern. But these are things, these are like kind of, you can't help but be disappointed about it. So yeah, when I saw that this was the case, and I didn't have the spoilers as well for it as well. And they started talking about it. And it was like, it's just going to be a fucking pre-sale. I was like, no, surely there's something else. By the way, we're going to be over in the UK in March or wherever, just to try and say, okay, so WWE are going there in April after WrestleMania. Maybe that'd be a good time to go. None of that stuff.
It's ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's like, again, like I can say, you know, personally as well, I'm probably, as Adam's saying in the chat there, I'm probably not going to buy a ticket until the day of the show at this point, because like you fuckers aren't selling that out next time. You're probably not coming close to what you did the first time based on current trends. And, you know, with that said, yes, you should do everything you can to drum up interest. But if anything, this drummed up negative interest. It like, I literally woke up, Steph, that you won't believe what they've announced. Like, you won't believe that's the announcement. And we're, again, the target audience for it. You know,
did she reply with,
they should do more
off.
to promote all in it shows. Yeah, pretty much, yes. And that's pretty much the thing here. It is just that. It is just it's a letdown at a time when they can't afford to just do these own goals constantly over and over again, and constantly make these rookie mistakes that just foster bad will towards them as a promotion. And Tony Khan is the center of it right now with stuff like this. On that note, the rest of the show, like, where do you even start with the rest of it? Like, I almost want to go to Big Show, because like, I know, I said this on Twitter yesterday, I know that's not the biggest deal in the world. But it again, like Ric Flair, like Billy Gunn in your main event, it's an accumulation of things, like it is. And like, I just couldn't help but like, I rolled my eyes when he came out, because we all expected it. Of course, we said it last week. It's going to be Big Show, isn't it? Because Jericho's talking about having a big man as his partner. And here he comes out, as you say, waddling out. And, you know, unfortunately, at this point in his wise old years, pretty much unable to walk straight. He looks like Andre in his his latter days in WWF. I know that sounds dramatic, but I don't really have much faith he can do much when he actually gets in ring. But like, the more I sat on it, I was just like, it just sums up everything wrong with AEW, because it's like, we've built up like, who's this mystery guy going to be? And this is only a minor point, JP, for an 8-man tag on a show that would also build another 8-man tag. So that's a Tony Khan like bingo in it. Like, of course, we got to have another 8-man tag with other mystery men at the same time as we're building another 8-man tag with mystery men. Not the biggest issue, but you know, that's one thing. And then he comes out and it's just like, hang on, haven't you been over the last few weeks or so, for as shit as it's been, and as much as I wanted to get away from Jericho, building up this thing where Daniel Garcia is still loyal to Jericho, and he wants to, you know, he's fighting the other fucking scrubs about whether he should dance or not. Like, surely it felt like maybe there was something like a straw there, or a bit of a story there that was being built for him to be in this spot. No, because that's not the company we are anymore. The company we are is we trot out no more BS, Paul White. Like, he comes out, and that's what it is, to get into an 8-man tag where Kenny Omega's, you know, getting his mate Kota Ibushi involved, and Kenny Omega himself is being dragged into this Jericho verse, which is just not where really he should be on the card. And then at the same time, Takeshita's on the other side of the ring as window dressing as Don Callis soaks in all the heat. Like, just thinking about it, all these different elements of it, it's everything I dislike about AEW right now. And then to top it off as well, JP, just to throw one in for you, what was the knock-on effect of it? Well, it meant that backstage, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks had a little argument about what their friendship meant. So we're getting some elite melodrama as a nice little side dish to go along with this shit that is this plate of fucking garbage that this 8-man tag is. Like, it's just like, again, I gotta stress, it's just an 8-man tag. Maybe Paul White's gonna eventually put over Hobbs and it'll be over with. But like, I just think the more you pick at it and the more you look into it, like, there's a lot here that just sums up where we are right now with this company. Like, fucking Paul White, JP, like I say, I was sick of him in 2005. Like, it's 2023. What's he doing on me telly? He spent 2 years not being on telly. Could we not go another 2? Let's go another 10. I'll be fine.
That's it. And I think the one match, weirdly, that he could kind of have him in, which I'm not keen on it because I'm haunted by Sid versus El Gigante, but it's him and Satnam Singh, just because they're the two biggest people that are in wrestling. So like that would be outside of Omos, I think. Like, and I'm not keen on that. I'm not suggesting that as being a good thing necessarily to do, but this
Please
again
don't.
gets to the wider problem of AEW, because if you look at that face side as well, who's the young man in that team? Kenny Omega at 40, Kota Ibushi 40, Jericho mid 50s, got Paul White. Was he early 50s now at this point? Is he? I'm assuming so. It was only like late 40s at the very, very least. And it's very like sports entertainer heavy. And then, like you say, leading on to the melodrama involving the Bucks at all, who set out the stall of like, oh, I thought we were just all getting to work together, which I just thought, well, of course you do, Rod and Todd, don't you? Like, that's exactly what you're fucking like. So
they were fucking, yeah, like their segment, like, you know, because they did the whole thing, didn't they? Because this was another thing, another thing that I hated about this show. Oh, we're doing rematch clauses are apparently a thing in AEW now. Since fucking when? Like, and there's a lot of, again, the holes like in this company right now. You go down the line like to fucking like Willow Nightingale getting, you know, title shots when, you know, she's losing fucking match. Yeah. She lost a 4-way match last week to be the number one contender. Yeah. There's so many little things where there's holes. That's another one. Like, there's so many other examples of stories where, where was their rematch clause? You can't answer it because this is fucking WWE now. This is what WWE do. Yeah. WWE just randomly make up their own rules as they go. Or to be honest, to the point like you make there about the Bucks, like I want to see them actually give a fuck about something. But then they're fucking slamming the chairs against the ring post and getting mad about the trios titles. Like, okay, maybe lads, if you show me over the next 3 months that you actually care about anything else, maybe it'll become part of your character and maybe that'll be good. But it's not. It's going to be an outlier, isn't it? It's just a fucking one-off thing that somebody came up with. Like, oh, we'll do that tonight. Because everything they're doing right now in the company is last minute. I don't think the wrestlers know their directions right now. The wrestlers don't know what's coming next based on reports that we're seeing. The wrestlers are getting things, as we talked about with the Jerry Lynn story, like hidden from them as far as like long-term stuff. And just a lot of chickens are coming home to roost. We've been saying we're going to do a state of AEW spotlight coming up with Gareth, I think, when we have a quiet week in a couple of weeks. All of these things need to be discussed. Like, there's just so much there that like is going so wrong right now in the company. And these all sound like little things, and they pretty much are. But I think we've just all had enough of all these little things that just make no sense with what they're doing.
And the thing is about this is we're not saying this just to bitch about it. Like, really, there's plenty of other things I would happily fucking slag off rather than a lot of this stuff. It's because there was a point in time where they were setting a direction, and as a result, WWE became a better product as a result of it, I think, because it kind of forced them almost to focus and get themselves to be a lot more stable. And instead, what we're seeing backstage here is kind of calamity. But it's also at a time when it appears to me, and maybe, you know, on the outside looking in, there's a lot of people have been sort of thrown into the creative team. And I'm very wary about who these people are, what their influences are, I think really importantly, because it appears to be very sports entertainment influenced at this stage. Also with a penchant of, oh, this person is a WWE guy. We need to put them on the TV in order to try and say, no, this person's over here now. And it's just like, that's not the thing that's going to work. Not in 2023, particularly when you mentioned Daniel Garcia. You've got this underutilized roster of people, and you'd signed people from WWE who were underutilized there, who you know, we spoke about after All Out and Wrestle Dream. We've said, actually, you see about them doing the build for Swerve, doing like even a build for like kind of Miro, Malachi Black, like sorting out those people, Andrade, people moving up, Jay White. And now it feels like, well, we're going to cloud it with a load of like kind of old lads and nonsense and winging it on the day, which is very, very Vince, isn't it? We're going to tear things up and we're going to rewrite it. There's no planning for this. And if you've hired people who are doing the writing, they should be having this, like, what the fuck are they doing then? Why are you rewriting a lot of this stuff? We should be talking about, they should know directions pretty much all the way to All In. I don't think that's unreasonable for a company that wants $1 billion deal, for them to be organized for like the next, 8 months, 9 months. I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
Well, they're not that company anymore.
They aren't.
They don't know. They don't know. You can bullshit. You can bullshit us, and Jerry Lynn can be like, "Oh, it's to keep it out the sheets." Is it fuck? Mate, Tony Khan doesn't know who's going right now, and it's also being again. This is a bigger conversation for a big spotlight at some point. But like, I think that what's also coming home to roost is like the people, like you say, the people he's listening to, the fact that Jericho continues to have his Jericho verse, the fact that the Bucks continue to basically only exist to have feuds with their friends and who's our friends this week, and just, you know, there's a limited pool of people they'll work with, and then MJF, you know, linked into that is the biggest fucking shining example of this right now in this company, whereas like we just looked at the merch numbers, JP, the man's shifting merch. You look at the quarter hours, his segments do well. We can't pretend they're not. But I just think that's what, while that is true, the overall of the company and the overall tone, as we keep saying, is wrong. The identity is wrong. And that does still start at the top. And I think like his running story through this show, like had a lot of those same issues, you know, a lot of, you know, convolute. Some of it made me laugh. Some of it I enjoyed. But again, like with MJF, I could delete another. I could go yes to that idea, yes to that idea. No, you shouldn't walk around the corner and then magically there's like somebody else, like you're playing a fucking like a video game. You know what I mean? You're walking around and there they all are dressed in their gear, just magically with these avatars waiting to bump into you to do another comedy sketch. Like just a bit of quality control. Like would probably resolve that, because I like the idea of a like night-long story. I like the idea of building up your fucking main event, which has been a negative in this company. So there's a positive. They spent the show building up their main event, but they were building up a big fucking scissor party, like a big again another big comedy spot and a big, like, you know what I mean, like a big light-hearted moment, which also had. And again, we talk about the tonal problems with AEW right now, like shoehorned in a Jay White pin over MJF for their somewhat more serious program that's going on, which just felt like, you know, almost like, well, in EWR, you have to do that. The guy who's losing at the pay-per-view clearly has to win his match. And it just felt a little bit like, I don't know, it felt obvious what they were doing, you know what I mean? And with the overall tone being off, it also felt like it didn't fit. Then on top of that, you got, you know, fucking old man Billy Gunn running roughshod over all the heels because, like, you know, he thinks he was the Rock in his prime, and, you know, his sons and basically the AEW roster seem to appear they are. That's a minor issue, but that's another problem that you had in that main event of him towering over everybody and bouncing them around like he's fucking everything. And it just, instead of, at the end of the night, instead of MJF selling that Jay White had beat him and selling that, you know, as a, you know, he's a geek, but as a geek couldn't get his title back, you know, selling that, which I suppose is your story. They're just doing that, oh, we'll all scissor together and it'll be like a nice go-home moment for the house show audience. Like, the house show audience, by the way, that was fucking appalling in Louisville that night.
Quiet.
It's just... And quiet, yeah, for a reason, you know. And they were allowed for elements of this, but not really the match itself either, which is notable too. But it's just like, again, the idea of a show-long story, good. In principle, the idea of Jay White beating MJF, good. But, you know, I don't know, the execution of it wasn't great here. But there's just 9 other ideas all fucking sandwiched in there that just, you know, it need an adult in the room to say no to Max, and an adult in the room to tell Tony Khan that he's fucking lost the locker room, and to tell Tony Khan that he's completely lost his edge as a booker right now, and to tell Tony Khan he's listening to all the wrong people. And yeah, for the good that's there, and it should be credited, there's so much bad right now on this program.
Yeah, it is. And I think what's worse is that behind it all, there is a roster that used properly. And I think this is the thing I kind of came away from it. Like, I looked at the show long storyline stuff. I just wanted some kind of grown-ups, some just more of an adult tone to it. It felt very, very childish. I think that's where I am with like AEW, and a lot of the characters and a lot of the skits. They're very silly and they're fluff. And a lot of the MJF stuff, I just kept on thinking, you know, show long storylines where Steve Austin has to find tag partners during the Attitude Era, and everybody kind of hates him. Why? Because he's Steve Austin. So he's going to struggle to find those people. He's not going to be pulled up against a wall against like Wardlow and stuff like that. It's going to be very much like he has to kind of really watch his back in order to get to the main event and stuff like that. Whereas, like, tonally, this is where it was very, very silly. And that's what it was. Like I say, just to build up to...
You've hit something there.
Giant scissor party.
It's not 97, Steve. it's fucking Steve Austin with cowboy hats fucking around with Kurt Angle.
Yeah,
he's learning from the wrong Steve. Like, you know,
he is learning. From
Billy Gunn's 60, by the way, JP.
Oh, Jesus Christ. And he never sells for anyone, Billy Gunn. That's the other issue on this. It's not that I've minded him as a character person, but he just never sells for anyone. I don't think he sells for his own fucking kids, really. Like, which is quite an incredible thought when I think of it. I'd like to think I'd put my sons over in a fucking match, you know, them being my sons. But Jesus Christ. Yeah. And I think anything else that's good on the show, and you can't help but feel that does get overshadowed. So, like, you know, like Gareth mentioned at the start of this, Orange Cassidy versus Claudia Castagnoli is good. And the idea of building to a John Moxley match, good. And in fact, another thing that has to be said, overall having a much better idea of what this Full Gear card is going to be in early November, even though it's not happening for another couple of weeks, good.
That's
but they're also the things they should have been doing. So it is like you're kind of damning with faint praise. Well done. Here's a round of applause for doing the thing that you should always be doing, because this is how you kind of build interest for your shows and whatnot. But yeah, instead, it is like it's still a mess of a show. And tonally, I think it's just on that, it's on a wrong path. I'm not saying everything needs to appear like it's, I don't know, like serious existential drama and the rest of it. But a couple of serious people, and by serious people, I don't mean Swerve Strickland appearing as like a moustache twirling villain of, I'm going to steal your baby. Like, none of that shit. Like, you know, instead, like we, you know, it's about, I think, and this is the trick that they're kind of missing in all of this, presenting their characters like they're real people. That was the thing I came away with from a lot of this shows. There's a lot of them who they're just cartoon characters, and ultimately it's hard to relate to those for a TV audience. Like, whereas that's the thing I always loved about Eddie Kingston, for example, who isn't on any of the TV, is he actually comes across as a real person, warts and all, but at least he adds something and like a different kind of edge. And there isn't those type of people around. Rant over.
Well, we're definitely going to be having the big AEW, we call it the AEW Spotlight Intervention maybe episode. I think that's probably coming up week after.
We need to talk about Tony. Go that for a show title.
Cool. I'll go with that. And with Connor, you know, comment there on the chat just to point out, I'm still enjoying Jay White in general. I think he's going to. There are positives right now. Swerve feels like he's on the way to main event. Jay, he's clearly going to lose to MJF, but I think he's established much higher in the card than he was going into this. It's just, you know, there's a lot of shite on the way, unfortunately. There is good there if you pull at it. It's just, I think it is being outweighed right now by just the mess that is this company right now. But we'll talk more Dynamite, I'm sure, and in future weeks and certainly on Spotlight. But on that note,